Yes, it is time for that, Sophie. Thank you. Good evening and welcome to BBC London. Coming up on the programme, we'll go through what the Chancellor's spending review means for the capital. A boost for London's social and affordable housing. But is it enough?
Build more social housing, but what about the cost of housing? What about the many people that's living in TA? How are we going to look at this problem in a holistic way?
When it comes to funding for new transport projects and the Met Police, critics say London's lost out.
There isn't really anything in there for London this time, and it's a proper disappointment because London can be the engine of growth for the whole economy.
We'll bring you reaction and analysis on all that from our correspondents. Also on the programme this evening. Inside, new state-of-the-art facilities at the Oval, bringing cricket into the 21st century. And
what's the fanciest punctuation? An apostrophe.
We meet the London pupils chosen by the Beano as Britain's funniest. Thanks for joining us. I'm Lakshmi Gopal. Well, as you've been hearing, the Chancellor's spending review has set out budgets for government departments. So what does all this mean for London? Well, let's start by looking at some of the key points. Transport for London is getting a £2.2 billion funding boost over the next 4 years, but there'll be no money for new transport links, including the planned extension of the DLR. After confirming last autumn that HS2 will run all the way to Euston, remember that? Today, the Chancellor put a figure on the funding to make that happen. But disappointment from City Hall as the Mayor, Sadiq Khan, criticises what he says is insufficient funding for the Met Police. We'll get analysis in a moment, but first, our transport correspondent Tom Edwards has spent the day in Thamesmead getting some reaction.
The centre of Thamesmead in south-east London, this is where thousands of homes could be built and the whole area redeveloped. But it needs a DLR link, and no news of that today in the spending review. Locals aren't that surprised.
Development is always welcome, but I do think this area could do with better transport.
We're not bothered because if we want to go anywhere, where I live is door to door. If I want to go to the O2 or anything, if I want to go up to London, we go and get the Elizabeth line.
Trains, OK, we have to go to Abbey Wood. The Elizabeth line is a real bonus. But the DLR would be even better.
So you're not going to miss not having a DLR extension here?
No, I personally won't, no.
15,000 homes would be built here on Thamesmead waterfront, with another 15,000 across the river at Beckton. Yesterday, the Mayor admitted without government funding for a transport link to kickstart the project, London will miss its housing targets.
The government says we need to be building, roughly speaking, 88,000 homes a year. There is no way we're going to do it without more investment in infrastructure.
This area is meant to be a priority for housing for the Mayor, and feasibly there could still be funding in the budget in the autumn. But for all the talk about how a DLR extension is necessary for here, the government weren't listening. Business groups say the government decision on capital in London is baffling.
So London is the engine room of Britain's economy, and the way in which you drive growth throughout the country is by investing in transport across Britain, and that includes investing in new transport schemes in London. Investing in transport in London isn't simply a transport investment, it's a growth catalyst.
The development here won't stop, but at the moment there's considerable uncertainty. Insiders at City Hall called it a missed opportunity. Tom Edwards, BBC London.
Well, as you can imagine, we can't talk about spending and London without talking about housing. And our correspondent Megan Owen can give us the breakdown from today's review. Megan.
Thanks very much, Lakshmi. Well, investment in housing was one of the big takeaways of the day. But why is this so important for London? The Chancellor has announced a £39 billion investment in affordable and social housing across the country. Ministers hope it will help them hit their target of 1.5 million new homes by 2030. Now, this is key for the capital, which is going through a so-called housing crisis. Councils are facing bankruptcy because of their spend on homelessness, and the average wait time for a family-sized social rented home is 27 years. So what will today mean for those in temporary accommodation and those who provide it? Meeting the demand for homes in London is a race against the clock. 3/4 of this new build site in Peckham will be affordable. But more of this is needed, according to councils who've been calling desperately for more funding.
This is a great day for people across our country who are waiting for a council home, a social rent home that they can afford to live in. So these homes are desperately needed, but they're not just about the bricks and the mortar, they're about the lives that they'll change.
Temporary accommodation is not the answer.
James has been homeless for just 5 weeks, living in a basement flat which he says is poorly ventilated.
It's full of mold and also damp as well.
As it stands, it could take decades for him to get a social rented home. He welcomes today's announcement, but says the government's investment needs to happen sooner rather than later.
Building a house that is affordable is a good initiative because there are millions of people being homeless outside the streets of London. And if they want to do what they promised to do, I will urge them to do it as soon as possible, because the longer it takes, the damage it causes to lives.
The charity who supports him says the government still needs to look at the wider picture.
I think the housing situation has gone from a crisis to an emergency. Yes, great, build more social housing, but what about the cost of housing? What about the many people that's living in TA? How are we going to look at this problem in a holistic way?
If the government sticks to its promise, scenes like these could be more common in the capital over the next 10 years. Well, business leaders say that whilst it's important to get housing right, including to drive recruitment, they feel forgotten in this spending review. The London Chamber of Commerce, in response, said they strongly support capital spending across the UK to improve infrastructure and to drive economic growth, but this must not be at the expense of London. And the Federation of Small Businesses says they will be wondering when they will feel the benefits of today's spending review. They said it was not the business-focused day that they had hoped for. So, cautious optimism over housing, but again, very much that feeling that London has been left out of the picture. Luxmi.
Megan, thank you. So a lot to digest there. So to help assess the overall picture, I'm joined by our political editor, Carl Mercer, and Antonia Jennings, who's chief executive of the think tank Centre for London. I'll come to you in a moment, Antonia, but first of all, Carl, the Mayor of London, safe to say he's not happy about today. What's he said?
I think that would be an understatement. Megan mentioned some cautious optimism, didn't she? I think less than cautious pessimism from City Hall. This was a mayor who campaigned telling us that London would be better off with a Labour mayor and a Labour government. We'd get much more out of it. In fact, they've got very little. And I suppose the fact that the mayor is not willing to be interviewed today tells its own story about how that relationship with government has gone. I mean, he has put out a statement saying he's worried about police numbers, he's worried about that infrastructure, and he's worried that the not having the infrastructure, those transport links put in place, will lead to not enough homes being built. But as I said, he wouldn't talk to us, but guess what? His political opponents would. Let's have a listen to him.
I think this is a buy now, pay later spending review that's anti-London. The only thing the Chancellor isn't buying in this review is Sadiq Khan, because there's so little mention of London. Key infrastructure projects like the DLR extension to Thamesmead getting no money.
Well, it's bad news for London. I think we've been anticipating this because we've heard from the Commissioner about his worries about police numbers. We heard from Sadiq Khan about the worry about the settlement we could get for transport infrastructure, and it's all proven to be true. There isn't really anything in there for London this time, and it's a proper disappointment because London can be the engine of growth for the whole economy, and we have our own inequality that we need to address too, and it's a shame that the Chancellor's not recognised it.
Well, it's a bit of a turnout for the books. Both sides on the same page there around disappointment that there's no money for new transport links. And Antonia, how can you build new housing easily when you don't have the new transport links?
the two definitely go together, that's for sure. And what we saw today in the spending review is that Rachel Reeves committed to explore options for things such as the extension of the DLR to Thamesmead. I would suggest there already are quite a few options for getting that funding over the line. We know that there are mechanisms such as land value capture, increased fiscal devolution, borrowing against future growth, all of which, or a combination of which, could get that project over the line. So that was disappointing to see. We also know that investment in transport brings a sort of multiplier, a multitude of benefits, both for London but also for the wider country. And I say that because in London we know that 1 out of every £4 that the Treasury gets comes from London, and that's despite only 15% of the population living here. So we already are kind of a net benefiter for the Treasury.
But when it comes to the amount that's going towards housing, we know it's £3.9 billion a year for 10 years. But how much of that's coming to London?
That's the problem. We don't know, do we, Antonio? And I mean, we'll be down to people like you and me to have a look through the books over the coming years. But I mean, I think you would probably guess London would get about a fifth of that. That probably normally works out about that. So something just under £1 billion a year. But again, I think there will be questions over, is that enough?
Potentially. I wouldn't want to look into a crystal ball. I would hope that given how acute the housing crisis is in London, we do get our fair share, sort of TBC, around what exactly that figure is. But just to couch this in terms of need in London. So London, of course, is one of the most geographically rich areas in the country. But once you account for housing costs, so once you actually take out housing costs from most people's pay packets, then our poverty level skyrockets and 1 in 4 Londoners live in poverty. We know on top of that, of course, we've got the temporary accommodation crisis. And more than that, we've seen to date a lot of coherence between the Mayor and central government around new building. Now is the time for action.
Well, just on the temporary accommodation, of course, a huge factor in councils needing more money. How happy might they be today, London Council?
I think, again, they'll be a little bit concerned that councils will feel they've been left out a little bit out of all the calculations in this. And there is something that will worry probably our viewers as well a bit, that council tax looks like it will continue to rise at about 5% a year to help fund some of these proposals. And I think that will be a concern for local authorities, won't it?
It will be a huge concern for local authorities. You know, most people engage with their local councils through either, you know, bin collection or council tax, frankly. And so that optically and politically is going to be very hard for councils. On top of that, we know that councils are teetering on the edge of bankruptcy at the moment, particularly under TA costs.
Absolutely, something that we have covered a lot and will no doubt return to. There's so much more we could unpack, but that's it for now. That's all we've got time for. But Antonia and Carl, thank you very much. Now, away from spending news, let's leave that for now. There is still plenty more to come on the programme.
What do you call the fanciest punctuation?
Find out the answer to the joke which has made this class in East London the funniest in Britain.
And in a summer of change for women's cricket, I'll be finding out what it means for Surrey here at the Oval.
But first, a police officer who carried out a strip search of the black 15-year-old girl known as Child Q has admitted a series of failings. PC Christina Linger told a disciplinary panel she was sorry for her mistakes in searching the girl at school, but has denied gross misconduct. Well, our Home Affairs correspondent Sonia Jessup joins me. Sonia, this is the first time we've heard from one of the officers involved, isn't it?
That's right. PC Christina Linger is a trainee detective constable, and she told the panel how she had been called to Child Q's school in Hackney in December 2020 after teachers wrongly suspected that she'd been carrying cannabis. Now, she admitted that she made a series of failings that day when she carried out this strip search on the 15-year-old who was on her period at the time, including that there was no appropriate adult present. She told the panel that officers had been told by Child Q that she didn't want her mum to be called. So instead, a safeguarding manager was asked to act as the appropriate adult standing outside the door. She also admitted she didn't know that a strip search of that kind required the authority of a supervisor, and she hadn't carried out a less intrusive search first. She said that she was confused by the different types of searches. She felt that the training was inadequate. And when asked when she hadn't carried out and written up a report of what happened, she said that she forgot.
And Sonia, she has, of course, as you say, admitted a series of failings, but she denies that that was gross misconduct.
That's right. She denies gross misconduct, along with PC Victoria Ray and PC Rafał Schmedinsky, all deny gross misconduct. In this case, when it came to light, sparked anger. We saw protests on the streets of East London. And today, PC Linga acknowledged her errors had caused harm and distress to the girl. And she said she was sorry, but she insisted I was as courteous and respectful as could be. She was asked if she would have done anything differently if the girl had been white, and she replied no. And the hearing continues.
Sonia, thank you. Let's have a quick look at some of the day's other news now. A woman has been arrested following the death of a 4-year-old boy in Maidenhead in Berkshire. Police were called to a property in Dunholm End yesterday evening. A man's been taken to hospital with a head injury after a collision involving a coach in central London. Emergency services were called to Dean's Yard near Parliament Square this afternoon. Paramedics and an air ambulance attended. He was driven to a major trauma centre. The rail operator C2C has apologised to customers who've been overcharged. Some passengers using contactless cards are being overcharged by up to £3 each time. C2C says it's working to resolve this and is asking people to use paper or e-tickets for the time being. Now, if you're a cricket fan, there is an exciting summer ahead, with England taking on India in both the men's and women's games. Some things are a bit different in women's cricket this season, including at the Oval, where Surrey women are in action tonight and where our sports reporter Chris Slegg is now. Chris, so tell us what's new for women's players there.
Yeah, Lakshmi, it is a summer of change in women's cricket. We've got Surrey against Notts here in the women's T20. They are two of the best teams in the country, and the top 8 sides have been moved back inside the county setup, aligned alongside the men's top clubs, and the competition's now aligned to be in the same part of the calendar as well. Now, not every county is in favour of these changes, but here at Surrey, they certainly feel they've struck a winning formula.
Surrey women haven't struggled for sixes this season. They're one of 8 fully professional teams in the country. Opening batter Danny Wyatt believes the women's game has never been in a better place.
Even as an England player, we chatted about it as a group the other week. Like, we've got to really be on our A game to perform at domestic cricket now. There's no easy games, there's no easy opposition. And it's a credit to the ECB for how they've invested in the women's game in this country, and it's going to be scary to see how far the women's game is going to keep on growing over the next few years.
Another factor highlighting the growing professionalisation here, a multi-million-pound upgrade to the Oval, which means for the first time the women's team benefits from its own permanent dressing room. As you can see, it's to the highest spec.
Among the enhancements, as has been standard in men's dressing rooms for years, every player has a personalised locker and storage space. Director of Cricket Emma Calvert says the change is more than cosmetic.
When you have girls who've been playing cricket for their whole lives and they've never had their name on a locker before, so the emotion that came with that, if players like Tash Farron, who's been around the world playing for England, who genuinely was taken aback and emotional to have her name on a locker for the first time, it's just special, really special.
I think this is going to be the start of something special. I think a lot of the teams will probably end up having their own training rooms like that eventually. And you know, it is important that we are treated like the men as well.
It's already been a record-breaking season, and you sense for Surrey and women's cricket, the best is yet to come.
Yeah, the ECB investing now an additional £4 to £5 million a year in women's cricket. They want to increase the number of professional women's players by 80% come 2029, and that should only help the England team. Of course, this summer we've got England-India in a men's test series, 5th test here at the Oval at the end of July. In the women's game, England-India in T20 and one-day internationals. The 3rd T20 is here at the Oval on July the 4th. Tickets still available for that. Quite a summer ahead. Lakshmi.
Chris, at a sunny Oval, thank you. Now, have a look at this face. It looks really real, doesn't it? But it isn't a photo, it's actually a painting. And it's been done by Kelvin Okafor. He's a hyper-realist artist who specialises in pencil portraits of people, celebrities or otherwise. His latest exhibition, called Drawing Awareness, celebrates visible differences and is on at the Hope 93 Gallery in Fitzrovia. He's been speaking to our reporter, Alice Solfield, about his very lifelike portraits.
The intention isn't actually to create a very realistic drawing. It's just a part of my personality. I've always been obsessed with detail and precision, so I guess naturally it comes out in the body of work. But I'm always grateful to hear it.
And what do you use to create these works? And do you use photos as your references? Or?
So I work from life, I use photographs. You know, there's nothing beats this tangible moment, but all with pencil and charcoal, you know, just capturing the human being in front of me.
Amazing. Now, you show a lot of your process, your work on social media, and people love it. You've got hundreds of thousands of views. But that's just a snippet of how long it actually takes to create them.
Yes, that's right. So on average, we're looking at between 500 to 1,000 hours. In the exhibition, all the 9 drawings are ranging between 600 to 1,000 hours, 600 to 1,000 hours.
That's incredible. Well, you mentioned the exhibition there. It's called Drawing Awareness, and it's all about highlighting visible differences and skin conditions. What made you want to focus on that?
Absolutely. So in 2019, I had the opportunity to meet Winnie Harlow. I drew her. We had a big unveiling 2 weeks before the lockdown. And in that moment, I was just inspired. I just had a light bulb moment of, hold on, I'm a portrait artist. I've studied portraits my whole life. But looking back, I've hardly seen any of the old masters capture people with a visible difference, whether it's a skin condition like vitiligo, albinism. So I felt like in that moment, this was my opportunity to highlight these conditions and hopefully create some inclusion, because that's what Winnie Harlow was able to do. In the modelling industry, her vitiligo became a norm, whereas before it was unseen.
And throughout this process, you got to hear these people's stories.
Oh, yeah.
And what was that like?
I mean, I'm a very, very emotional man. So hearing these stories it just added a deeper level of compassion and empathy, and just shows me the strength of the human spirit. Because a lot of the times they were bullied, you know, they were put aside and didn't really feel included. So it just made me feel very, very grateful to have an opportunity to shed light on them and provide inclusion.
And what were their reactions like when they saw these beautiful images with such detail that you'd created?
Gratefully, there was a lot of tears, a lot of happy emotions, and they would often comment, this is the first time I've really seen myself, because I can be quite unforgiving with detail. The pores, things that people think are imperfections, blemishes, wrinkles, are actually perfections for me. So when they see it, they're like, oh wow, you've seen all of me.
Incredible artwork, isn't it? Now, think back to your school days. There was always a class clown, wasn't there? Well, it seems one school in Leighton has a whole classroom full. Their Year 5 pupils have been chosen as the funniest class in Britain by the Beano comic after sending in the winning joke for a competition. Harry Lowe went to find out more.
What do you call a fighting crocodile?
What's Yoda's favourite kind of crisps?
What do you call a crazy sheep?
Meet the students who are now members of Britain's funniest class.
A barbarian.
Skywalkers.
Mohammed Crocodile.
Year 5 pupils at Riverley Primary School in Leighton scooped the Beano Comics Prize for 2025. For them, the win is no joke.
I never thought it would win. Because like last year we entered some jokes and it didn't get in.
I just feel amazed and can't believe that we actually won Beano.
We just became Britain's funniest class. You can't have nothing better than that in school, innit?
Why are grannies always dancing? Because they had a hip-hop oration. What's the fanciest punctuation? An apostrophe.
I did not think something this big would be happening, especially because it's a little school in Leighton.
Maisha says being named Britain's funniest teacher in her first year in the job is a laughing matter.
Do you know what the smartest school dinner is?
Maths potato.
It's a really good thing because they should be excited. This is such a cool thing to happen to them. They've been all over the place. They think they're now exempt from any lessons, that we don't have to do any more teaching, any more writing or learning, which is obviously not the case because I would probably get fired.
I think she deserves it too, and I'm really proud of her. You know, it's her first year, and like, I've been in the school longer than her, and she's already got a funniest teacher, and I think she is generally funny.
She's funny, but she doesn't tell jokes. She's just funny naturally.
What do you call the fanciest punctuation? An apostrophe!
Harry Lowe, BBC London.
Well, there's good classroom vibes in that school there. Now, did you see how lovely the moon looked last night? It was a strawberry moon, and if you missed it, you've got another chance to see it tonight. It's caused by what's called a major lunar standstill, and tonight is the peak of the full moon, and you won't get to see it this low in the sky again until the year 2043. Ben Rich is here. Ben, I don't know about you, but I can't guarantee I'm going to be around in 2043. Are you?
Let's be optimistic, shall we?
I just mean generally. It's probably good to get a chance to see it now, right?
It would be good, yes, indeed, to get a chance to see the strawberry moon tonight. There's a very good article on the BBC Weather website, by the way, about why it's called the strawberry moon, so you can have a read of that for yourself. But as we went through today, after a slow start, the sun came out, and it started to feel very warm and very humid. More of that to come tomorrow, but with that, just the chance of 1 or 2 thunderstorms. So through this evening and tonight then, it's going to be largely dry with some clear spells. We've got some quite warm and humid air wafting its way in from the near continent, so it might just be a little bit uncomfortable for sleeping. Those are your overnight lows, 12, 13 degrees. So we head on into tomorrow morning. It's going to be a mostly fine start to the day. We will see some spells of actually very warm sunshine. But as we go through the middle part of the day, we may well see some showers and some thunderstorms pushing through. Now, they'll be quite hit and miss. Not everyone will see one. But if you do, it could be a real downpour. You really will know about it. It's going to be a very, very warm and humid day, 25, maybe 26 degrees. Now, as we look ahead to Friday, more of the same, a lot of dry weather, some spells of sunshine, but I think we do have the chance for 1 or 2 scattered showers and thunderstorms, particularly as we head towards the end of the afternoon. Temperature-wise, 27, 28, maybe 29 degrees. So Friday actually is going to feel like quite a hot day. And with that building heat and humidity during Friday evening, I think we could see some quite vicious thunderstorms. There is already a Met Office yellow warning covering spots mostly to the east of London. Could see a lot of rain in a short space of time from those thunderstorms, some large hail, some squally gusty winds, frequent lightning. That's the weather system responsible. But as that slides away eastwards by the second half of the weekend, we should have some slightly cooler, fresher air in place. Actually mostly dry through the weekend. And then as we head into next week, well, it looks like it is going to warm up again. Luxme.
Lovely, Ben, thank you. Now, I may not be here in 2043, but I will try to be here later for you with our 10:30 programme. But for now, from all of us here on the BBC London Tea Time News, have a very good evening. Goodbye.